Hey, yo, what up? It's your boy. If there's one thing in the anime content creation sphere that never dies down, for as long as I have been on YouTube and I've been watching anime content on YouTube, it is top 10 lists. People still love freaking making them. There were lots of people, and still lots of people to this day, who make entire careers out of making top 10 lists in the anime world and other subgenres as well. But the entire concept of top 10s has always been an interesting matter to me because, you know, I think it goes without saying, top 10 lists are very much subjective. But I feel the one time where the anime community can come together to collectively have an opinion on something is not when an individual creates a top 10 anime list. It's when an entire establishment or corporation, a company, if you will, decides to hop onto the top 10 anime trends as well. And there is a certain website that gamers and otakus may know about called IGN, and I guess every year they create a top 10 best anime series of all time list and throw it up on their channel. And I saw a couple of my contemporaries reacting to this new 2022 update of what IGN thinks is the top 10 best anime of all time, which I would like to say first and foremost is an impossible thing to numeralize, but you know, that's besides the point. I'm interested to see, what does IGN, a notorious game review company, think is the top 10 greatest anime of all time? And the real question is, how many of those will I agree with or disagree with? So unlike a regular article, IGN has gone out of the way to make an entire video surrounding it, so we're going to be reacting to it today. I haven't seen this video yet, but I mean, the fact that the opening scene already is a clip from Fully Cooley, one of my favorite anime series of all time, I'm kind of a little bit curious to see. Without further ado, let's just jump into it.
Anime continues to grow tremendously as the years pass. Whether it's the recent record-breaking Demon Slayer or the long-running One Piece series.
Okay, already I'm seeing a couple of series like Bakano, which I agree should be in the top 10 anime series of all time, according to just my opinion, but the list hasn't started yet. I love it when people call other people anime experts. I'm gonna give a spoiler right now that there is no such thing. They're just a bunch of fucking otakus and weebs that like anime a little too much. Okay.
We took several things into consideration when choosing our 25. Did the anime leave its mark on the culture in a meaningful way? Mm-hmm. Did they influence the industry and genre? And of course, did we just like them?
See, I'm glad, you know, that's the criteria they're going for, because I think it is important to throw your own personal bias in there as well. Obviously, I think IGN is very well aware that this is not like the definitive top 10 list, if you will, or I guess the top 25. I guess they're going to be highlighting the top 10 out of the 25 that they shared on an article or something. But yeah, already, you know, on the right track. All right, let's see if they'll stick the landing.
For this video in particular, we'll only highlight the top 10, with the rest being available to check out on IGN.com.
All right.
Here's our top 10 anime series of all time.
All right, let's see what you got, IGN. W. Hey, yo, Fully Cooley? Okay. So, someone at IGN's got some impeccable taste.
Fully Cooley is short even by normal anime standards, but there's a lot to be said for a good sci-fi comedy that knows how to call it quits before wearing out its welcome. The surreal tone, the incredible soundtrack, and experimental animation style all serve to make Fully Cooley a wholly unique and unforgettable anime experience.
I mean, to be honest, yes, I absolutely agree with that sentiment. I think the one thing that Fully Cooley did so well that kind of goes unnoticed is the art of being able to just cram a shitload of things and shitload of important things, especially concerning the story and the metaphors and the message that the story wanted to portray to its viewers, in not only in an artistic way and in a subtle way that wasn't too in your face and like, hey, this is the message we're trying to portray, eat it up. No, a lot of it was very much up to interpretation by the viewers. Some people watched Fully Cooley, you know, fully understanding the deeper meanings behind a lot of the imagery and a lot of the metaphors that the story sprinkled throughout its 6-episode run, but also the fact that, you know, at the end of the day, this is, I think, a great mixture of like art and entertainment. Like you can view Fully Cooley in an artistic way, as I mentioned earlier, but this is very much a series where you can just completely shut your brain off and just watch the cool animation, the cool fight scenes, the impeccable fucking soundtrack by The Pillows, which is still one of my favorite soundtracks to this day. Like, it's kind of a shame, I feel, that a lot of fans of Fully Cooley, I guess, or the general fan base of Fully Cooley, the type of people that like Fully Cooley are kind of seen as this like, oh, you're a real fucking anime hipster, just, you know, liking some deep shit that's just weird and profound, but at the end of the day, it doesn't make a whole lot of fucking sense. Which, yes, I get that criticism, but I think you're also really underestimating the potential that Fully Cooley has on a wider audience. Because again, you can watch it fully understanding and trying to delve deeper into the the readings and the imagery and the metaphors that surround and are very much, again, open to interpretation. But also at the same time, you can just shut your brain off and being like, yeah, weird girl with a bass guitar riding a Vespa and a robot coming out of a kid's forehead, do some epic fight scenes. It's pretty sick. One thing that a lot of people forget about Fully Cooley is that it revolutionized so many cool animation techniques, so many cool experimental animation techniques. I mean, there's entire scenes where they literally just animate a manga panel. And, back then, like, when Fully Cooley first came out, that shit was weird as fuck. No other studio was doing anything like this. No other studios were doing any kind of, like, weirder types of directing and experimentalizing, other than maybe, say, some early works by Studio Shaft, for instance, with like Sayonara Zetsubo Sensei. But in terms of the cultural staying power and the, I guess, accessibility that Fully Cooley offered, it trumps Sayonara Zetsubo Sensei by quite a bit. Oh! Do I have to start working for IGN? Do I have to start hanging out with the people who work at IGN? They are coming after my heart, boys! Number 9, Yu Yu Hakusho. I was, wow. I mean, look, I think a lot of people are very quickly going to say, overrated, Hunter x Hunter is better. But you have to understand that without Yu Yu Hakusho, Hunter x Hunter would not be a thing. Without the cultural impact that Yu Yu Hakusho left, not just amongst its readers and watchers, but just in the shonen genre in general. I mean, Yu Yu Hakusho, in my opinion, perfected the tournament arc. I mean, Dragon Ball and stuff like that, and the Budokai arc and stuff like that, that was the start of the tournament arc. But the Dark Continent tournament arc, the Uncle Taikai arc in Yu Yu Hakusho, I think is the pinnacle of tournament arcs. And I think this is, to this day, a very, in a lot of ways, kind of an underappreciated shonen series. But let's see what IGN has to say about it.
We follow Yusuke Urameshi, a 14-year-old
It's Urameshi, not Urameshi. Please. I know that's a subtle detail, IGN, but please, it's Urameshi. Do not say the man's name in vain.
Now, this series stands shoulder to shoulder with Dragon Ball Z as one of the most influential action anime of the 90s. I guess that.
See, I don't think, I kind of disagree with that statement. I mean, look, yes, definitely Yu Yu Hakusho was a very influential shonen series in the 90s. Again, the fact that it kind of took a lot of the elements that Dragon Ball kind of built up and, in my opinion, perfected a lot of it, like, as I mentioned earlier, the whole tournament arc thing. But I think it's giving Yu Yu Hakusho a little bit too much credit to say that it had just as much of an impact and influence as Dragon Ball. I think that's going a little bit too far. I think that's kind of underestimating the power and the staying power and the influential power that Dragon Ball has had, not just within the 90s, but over the past 40 years that it's been out. The reason why Yu Yu Hakusho is probably not as talked about as, say, Dragon Ball, for instance, is because Togashi came out with what a lot of people say is the better Yu Yu Hakusho, aka Hunter x Hunter, which I think is, very much completely deserving of its praise. And again, as much as I'm sure a lot of manga artists have looked up to Togashi, especially with the work that he did in Yu Yu Hakusho, saying that it's just as influential as Dragon Ball is, I think, giving it a little too much credit. Oh, number 8, Neon Genesis Evangelion. I would see, a lot of people, I think, would say that Evangelion fully worthy of being in the top 10. I almost would say that it should be ranked a little bit higher. I almost think Eva should be in the top 5 most influential or best anime series out there. But that's my opinion. Let's see what IGN has to say.
Even with countless movie and series sequels and reimaginings, nothing touches the masterwork of Neon Genesis Evangelion's first run, which remains a fan favorite and showcases how a singular auteur approach to storytelling can create art that continues to resonate for generations.
Okay, I very much agree with that statement as well. I'm glad that the IGN touched upon the fact that Eva is, at this point, in 2022, has become bigger than the sum of its own parts. I think Eva as a whole is not just about the anime anymore, it's about the culture that was surrounded by the anime. It's the fact that it brought on such a cultural phenomenon in Japan and especially in the West that is now the thing that I guess the Eva franchise is holding on to and is remembered for, right? Like, you know, a lot of people, you know, still love the original TV series, as do I, and love all of the remake movies and the spin-off movies and everything like that. But now it's like almost become, again, bigger than what it originally was, and it's become kind of a subculture of its own. And I think it's one of the few, if not the only anime series that has managed to do it to such staying power. I mean, reminder, this series originally came out like almost 30 years ago. And, you know, that's, and the fact that people, are still talking about it to this day, you still see it everywhere you go in Japan and even overseas. And it's now, again, become something bigger than it originally was. It's become like a franchise outside of its own scope is, I think, you know, worthy to note. And I think is a powerful advantage that Eva has above anything else that anime has to offer. There it is. Okay, look, I like Togashi, okay? I think he's the GOAT. That's not a hot take. But putting both Togashi stories in a top 10, I don't know if I fully agree with that. And this is no diss on Hunter x Hunter or anything, right? Like, I think if one of them or both of them are absolutely incredible. No doubt about it. I mean, you don't even have to have like read Hunter x Hunter or like caught up to Hunter x Hunter to know just how much of an impact Hunter x Hunter has had on modern day shonen. But at the same time, it's like, I don't know. I feel like you're missing out on a lot of other series by putting in 2 Togashi series. But you know, let's see what IGN has to say.
Now, the emotional highs and lows and the arcs of both the protagonists and antagonists are some of the very best. Now, as with most shonen, the dramatic action is fantastic too.
See, okay, I totally get that sentiment, and I know that, like, again, Hunter x Hunter has become such, like, a cultural phenomenon. I feel a lot of those same points can also apply to Yu Hakusho. So, if, in my opinion, I would have added either Hunter x Hunter or either Yu Hakusho. I think both series have done just as much power in the overall world of anime and the overall influence of anime as each other. Yes, they have their subtle differences. You know, obviously Hunter x Hunter went in a more darker direction and a lot more of a darker direction than Yu Hakusho ever had the space to go down. But I think in that sense, in terms of the grander, I guess, you know, impact that both of Togashi's works had, it kind of goes hand in hand on the grander scale of things. So in my opinion, if you were going to add Hunter x Hunter, then take out Yu Hakusho. But if you're going to just keep Yu Hakusho, then don't put in Hunter x Hunter. I think both can kind of, you know, be replaced. I think both in terms of the influence that it has created in the anime world definitely deserve to be in the top 10, but I think are kind of replaceable. You know, I think if you were going to put Hunter x Hunter in number 7, you could have easily put Yu Hakusho at number 7 as well, if that makes sense. No. Okay, I love Mob Psycho 100. Okay, I haven't caught up on the 3rd season yet, but I've seen the first 2, and I've read some of the manga, and it's an incredible fucking series. Okay, I actually prefer it in a lot of ways to One Punch Man, but the top 10 of all time, I wouldn't. The highest, I would put Mob Psycho maybe in like, I would definitely put it in the top 25 maybe, but I would put it closer into the 20s. I think in terms of the the impact that Mob Psycho 100 has that has created in not only the anime industry but just the anime viewing community, I honestly think One Punch Man might have been a bigger impact than Mob Psycho. Granted, again, this is not me saying, again, before the Mob Psycho fans fucking come after me, this is not me saying Mob Psycho is not good or anything. I fucking love Mob Psycho. Again, a lot of parts of Mob Psycho I prefer over One Punch Man, but I'm talking about in the grander scale of anime, in the 70 fucking years of anime that we've had, over the course of the commercial anime world. Mob Psycho, again, it's a really good show, but I don't think it did anything new or profound like the other 4 series that we saw did. It didn't like build any groundwork, and it's hard to say if it built any groundwork because there are still a lot of people who don't know Mob Psycho 100. There are still a lot of people who look at Mob Psycho 100 and go, okay, Mob Psycho took a lot of parts from its predecessors and perfected it and made a lot of it its own identity. But is it the GOAT? Is it the greatest? That's hard to say.
This series thrives on the strength of its humor, its small but memorable cast, and its dynamic visual style.
And again, look, all of those sentiments I fully agree with, but in terms of, you went through this entire list so far talking about the cultural impacts that these series had on not just the anime viewing world, but in terms of the anime creating world as well, like the industry impact that it created. And look, again, Mob Psycho, in terms of its visuals, in terms of its storytelling, in terms of its characters, all brilliant, all fucking fantastic. But again, these are elements that are not necessarily like a thing of its own, if that makes sense. These are concepts that were taken, the foundations were built from its predecessors and were perfected in some aspects, made completely its own in another aspect. And to be honest, if you look at it on the grander scale of anime, a lot of anime series have done that. Hell, One Punch Man even did it, right? Like it took exactly the same style of the kind of making it a parody of shonen as well as making it its own genre of shonen, right? Like even just within the same creator, this has already been done. So again, it's a great series, but I personally don't think it's worthy of being in the top 10. Hajime no Ippo. Okay. If there was going to be any sports anime that was going to be involved in the top 10, it was either going to be Hajime no Ippo or Slam Dunk. Honestly, both could fit into this number 5 spot. I think in terms of sports manga and sports anime, both Hajime no Ippo and Slam Dunk are worthy of the number 5 spot.
Also known in the US as Fighting Spirit, Hajime no Ippo is a
It's known in the US as Fighting Spirit? I never knew that. That's a really lame title.
Ippo, the titular character of this series, doesn't just train to be the best, but to understand and connect with his opponents. That alone is enough to set this series apart.
I completely agree. And I think, again, Slam Dunk in a lot of those same aspects fall into the same category of, like, it is a weirdly realistic interpretation of a sport and the people who are involved in those sports, right? Like, and again, this is not to say that power-ups in sports manga or anime are a bad thing. I mean, they have just as much of a right to stick around and have its popularity as all of these other ones, right? Like, the reason why we all loved manga and anime series like Prince of Tennis or, Kuroko no Basuke or even Ice Shield 21 is the ridiculous, world-defining, shonen power-up styled moves that are very much far away from reality, right? And, I think those are all fucking incredible and super fun to read. But what makes Hajime no Ippo especially fascinating is the fact that it is very much using the idea of sport and turning it more into a human drama story. And not just a human drama story just within the main character or the main characters and the side characters, but of every single character that is ever introduced within the grander story, right? Like, we get backstories and we get motives, we get, trials and tribulations and the loves and the journey of every single character at the same, I guess, latitude as the main character. And I think that's what makes series like this so incredible to follow along. And yes, both Hajime no Ippo and Slam Dunk, in my opinion, what I like to call kind of more like slow burner series, because on the grander scale of things, it's like, oh, they're just playing the sport. they're just training to get better. There's a lot of dialogue, there's a lot of just kind of internal monologuing and internal kind of dissection of oneself. But I think that's what makes a lot of these sports manga and anime so fascinating to watch. It's the fact that you can very much feel grounded to the world in a lot more of an effective way than, say, ones that have shonen power-ups. Oh. Yes. I was fully expecting this list to be kind of fucking cringe and just filled with like shonen shit, but I am so glad. I am so glad IGN is actually, really going to great lengths to kind of push out in terms of genres and stuff like that. I'm so glad they didn't just pick 10 shonen series. Holy shit, I'm so glad that they didn't do that. Because Monster, Urasao Naoki, is finally getting the fucking recognition that he so deserves. Fuck, that's a dub. This one's a dub.
Monster is quite simply one of the best stories ever told in anime/manga form.
Facts.
It's a dark, mature, gritty thriller about a good man who loses everything after doing what he believed to be the right thing, and the dark descent that he must endure in order to correct his mistake.
And yes, I think that not only is the strength of Monster as a series, but a strength of most, if not all, Urasao Naoki series. Now, granted, Monster is probably Urasao Naoki's most grounded and realistic interpretation of a story. I mean, you look at his other ones like 20th Century Boys or Billy Bat, where like a lot of more, I guess, sci-fi, fantasy, kind of more avant-garde elements get thrown into the mix. But in the same way, I think Urasao Naoki, the biggest strength of Urasao Naoki, and especially Monster, is the fact that Urasao Naoki is one of those manga creators that creates probably one of the most realistic characters in the most realistic settings, but doesn't make it so obvious and grounded to the point where it becomes tedious to read or watch, if that makes sense. I mean, Monster has, in my opinion, one of the best antagonists ever written. It is the fucking Kefka of anime villains, in my opinion. And, again, it's the fact that it is so gritty and dark, and it's the kind of thrilling storytelling that creeps up on you. It doesn't rely on any, like, scares or anything like that. It is all completely internal, and it is one of the best psychological horror stories, I think, ever written, period. Like, even outside of manga. Maybe that's a big claim to make, but that's how much I think Monster is an incredible series, and is one that I think any thriller, psychological horror, human drama fan needs to watch or read, because it's incredible, and again, fully deserving of this top spot. See, I was expecting the top three to come in. If it wasn't going to be One Piece, it was going to be Naruto or Bleach. See, this is tough. In terms of pure sales, yes, One Piece is the GOAT. It is the highest selling manga series of all time. It is probably one of the most famous manga series of all time, next to Dragon Ball and Naruto. In terms of its influence, I would probably put it in the top 10, but maybe not in the top 5. I don't know. I reckon One Piece did a lot of things really cool in terms of like its grandiose storytelling and stuff like that, but I think it's just, I don't know. It's hard to say. And this is coming from a One Piece fan, right? Like, I fucking love One Piece, but it's I don't know. Let's see what IGN has to say about it.
The world building, the deep characters, and the amazing adaptation that sometimes beats out the manga catapults this series to the top of shonen anime history.
See, I think One Piece is probably deserving of being in the top 10 best manga of all time. People have said this many, many times, but, and you might have experienced it while watching One Piece, the anime, but that shit sometimes gets padded out to fuck. Like, it gets padded out so fucking hard to the point where, there have been multiple arcs that have managed to turn, like, one whole episode into, like, one chapter, which is just not normally how, anime adaptations work. Usually it's, like, multiple chapters at least into one episode. And the fact that it's incredibly padded out and it's such a slog to go through. I mean, the fact that there is an entire website dedicated to watching One Piece without all of the fucking recaps and all of the extended openings and stuff like that, and like a literal abridged, cut down version of One Piece, goes to show you just how fucking padded out this anime is. So in that instance, I completely agree with, yes, One Piece has taken the shonen formula and in a lot of ways perfected it, and in a lot of ways made it incredibly accessible to a wider audience. In terms of it's anime, I wouldn't put it in the top 10. Again, manga, yes, probably. At least top 15. Anime, not so much. Yep. Okay. If this wasn't going to be number 1, it was going to be number 2. Let's admit, we all knew this was coming. See, I'm surprised. I thought for sure this was going to be number 1. This is one of those series where it's like, of course it's number 1. It's the greatest anime of all time. Huge preface. I love all of the series that have been included in these lists. In terms of its like staying power, in terms of the influence that it created, yes, I think Shinichiro Watanabe is one of the most influential anime creators, probably next to Anno Hideaki. I think if I had to like numerically list the most influential people in the anime industry, it would be Anno Hideaki and then Shinichiro Watanabe. One thing that Cowboy Bebop did, I think, really, really well and really, really interestingly is that, again, it took a very, in a lot of aspects, a very simple formula. These anti-heroes and, put them up against, very standardized, like beat the villains, build yourself as a human, go through all of these experiences and, find out what your true inspiration or journey is, right? Like it did a good job of kind of taking all the side characters and making them their own protagonists of their own world, which I think a lot of manga and anime series try to do, but a lot of them don't do it to the same effect that Cowboy Bebop did. And I think that's one of the biggest strengths of Shinichiro Watanabe is the fact that he can so effortlessly do that with all of the characters that he's created through all of the series that he has created. Samurai Champloo did exactly the same thing. And in terms of Cowboy Bebop versus Samurai Champloo, which one is better? I think that is completely up to preference. In my opinion, I prefer Samurai Champloo over Cowboy Bebop. I had a better viewing experience of Samurai Champloo than I did Cowboy Bebop. But again, not to say Cowboy Bebop is bad or worse or anything. I think in terms of which one is better, it's comparing apples and oranges. Like it's purely up to preference.
The space western that introduced us to Spike, Jet, Faye, Ed, and of course Ein still looks gorgeous. With a beautiful story, strong characters, and one heck of a soundtrack, it remains one of the best anime ever made.
I think in terms of accessibility to the West, I think Cowboy Bebop is probably one of the greatest that has ever been created. I mean, just the fact that the majority of the fans of Cowboy Bebop come from people outside of Japan. I have met a lot of people in Japan, a lot of Japanese people who have never even heard of Cowboy Bebop, have never even heard of Watanabe Shinichiro. Just goes to show the staying power of Cowboy Bebop in the West. Now, does that equate to, it being the greatest anime of all time? Sure, maybe in the West's perspective, but I think if we're looking at it in the grander scale of the anime community and the anime world, it definitely has artistic merit in the Japanese anime industry, but in terms of the effect that it created within Japan and amongst other Japanese creators, it's probably a little bit lower than some of the other shonen series out there. All right, but we're coming up to number 1. I'm going to take a guess. It's going to be like either Naruto or Bleach, like one of the shonen series, or I don't know if they're including movies, but I like to think Akira is up there. Maybe even like a Satoshi Kon film might be up there. I don't know. Let's see. You can comment your predictions right now, but that's my predictions. Let's see what number 1 is. All right, let's see. No! No. I'm sorry, but no, it's not. I'm sorry. Dude, they went below my expectations. Like, I would have preferred it if fucking Naruto was up there. Like, Jesus Christ. I know I'm gonna get fucking slammed, but it is not the best anime ever made. I'm sorry. It's just another shonen anime, in my opinion. The reason why Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood is being talked about by so many people to this day, still people saying that it's like the GOAT, still the greatest thing ever, is I think in a lot of aspects, it's the nostalgia factor. Like the fact that it just kind of popped off over in the West quite a bit, because for a lot of people, this was their first anime experience. This was like the first shonen experience that they had. And not just a regular shonen experience, but a shonen experience that was like a little bit darker than usual. Like I think in terms of the impact that Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood had on the shonen genre, I think One Piece had probably a bigger impact on the grander scale of things. I mean, the fact that people are still talking about One Piece to this day because it is one of the greatest selling anime of all time. Just goes to show that, like, this is one of those shonen series that is, like, it's hard to hate. You know what I mean? It's hard to hate Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood. I fully fucking enjoyed this series from start to finish. It is a great shonen series that I think is a fantastic gateway for a lot of people who have never watched anime. In the grander scheme of not just the shonen genre, but also the entirety of anime, I don't think it had that much of an impact that other series hadn't already done before and after Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood. In terms of its like staying power and its influence, I would have put Attack on Titan at number 1. If you're gonna put Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood in this list, where the fuck was Attack on Titan? Like, I think in terms of like a storytelling method and the extensive universe and the world and the cultural impact it had in both Japan and the West, I think in this day and age, Attack on Titan deserves to be on this list more than Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood.
The struggle of most anime is laying out intricate world building while balancing a cast of memorable characters, iconic moments, and thrilling fights. And that's what makes Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood so special.
Again, all of these things, Attack on Titan, in my opinion, has done better.
The framing device for our entry into this sprawling world is one of sympathy. Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood also knows when to lay it all bare in unforgettable moments that will leave you standing in front of your television cheering for the Elric brothers.
See, I completely get, and I think IGN has done a great job in explaining the intricacies of what makes Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood so much more than a shonen. I fully agree with everything that was said there. But again, Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood is not the only one, nor is it the first one to do something like that in its storytelling and world building to the extent that it did. I mean, again, we're not including it in this list because this is the top 10 best anime series of all time. But if we're including manga, Berserk did it way better, way earlier than what Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood did it in. And I think, again, like, it's this idea of, like, yes, you know, it was kind of the beginning for a lot of shonen to, like, kind of add intricacy and to add more, like, nuanced, emotions backed up by its main characters and its side characters and its villains and every single character that, you know, might have lasted up to, from as little as a chapter to all the way until the very end from the start, right? Like, I completely get why Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood is loved by so many people. And again, I fucking enjoyed it from start to finish as well, but is it the greatest anime series of all time? I think that's overrating it a little bit too much. I think there are other series out there that did so much more of a larger impact in the overall anime sphere. I mean, if we're just talking about like cultural impact on like the general anime viewing public as well as the industry, you can throw fucking Astro Boy up there. Like, like none of these series would exist if it wasn't for Astro Boy. Like, that could have been one that fit in the top 10. It is true. Like, there is no denying that, yes, Full Metal Alchemist had a massive, massive cultural impact, especially in the West in the mid-2000s, right? And even in Japan, FMA was loved by many, many, many people. But in terms of its staying power, in terms of its long-lasting cultural impact and how it made an identity for itself in the massive pool of anime out there, series like Monster and Neon Genesis Evangelion and Yu Hakusho and Hunter x Hunter have had bigger, long-lasting effects in all aspects and in all countries. Again, not to discredit Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, I would easily put it in within the top 20. Between 10 and 20 would be a perfectly, good spot to put it in. But again, there's so many series that we're missing here. I mean, we didn't even touch upon the shoujo genre. Like, where is Revolutionary Shoujo Utena or Sailor Moon or The Rose of Versailles? Like, these are all series that also created its own massive genre. I mean, if we're talking about things like the Seinen series, for example, like, there isn't a single Nagai Go series in here. Like, where is Harem Gakuen? Where is Mazinga Z? Where is, any of the other where is Devilman, right? Like, there's so many, like, elements and aspects that could be thrown into this, and I feel like IGN has taken it from a very small pool. Like, they've completely disregarded stuff from the 80s, 70s, and 60s. Like, where is Legend of the Galactic Heroes? In my opinion, that is still one of the greatest stories in anime and the best human dramas ever told, in a lot of aspects trumping even those of like Urasawa Naoki. I mean, I feel like there is so many like subgenres that have had such a massive staying power in the anime world that weren't really mentioned, and a lot of them were not influenced by any of the top 10 that were shown here. So look, I get it, you want to please the larger crowd. I get it. But Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood in the number 1 spot, as well as a couple of other ones in this list, I think are just a little bit of a cop-out to the grander scale of what anime has become and evolved into and will continue to evolve into. Yeah, I get why they put it up on here. I mean, it's a great series, don't get me wrong, but it is not the greatest anime of all time. So yeah, there you go. That was my opinion on the IGN Top 10 Best Anime Series of All Time, the 2022 edition. Let me know what you guys think. Again, I don't fault IGN for this because the fact that they even tried to make a list like this is a bit of a losing uphill battle because there is no perfect list out there. There is not a list that IGN or me or you or anyone can create that will be like, yep, this is 100% correct. Everybody agrees with this. Everybody is happy because, again, at the end of the day, it's all about personal preference. It's all about what you prioritize over other things, right? And, you know, calling it something like the best of all time is a very open-ended interpretation of what is considered the best. Like, is it based on influence? Is it based on popularity? Is it based on cultural phenomena? Is it based on a number of those factors, right? It's hard to dictate. So I don't blame IGN for it. If anything, I would say out of a lot of these kinds of fucking top 10 best anime series of all time lists out there, this was probably one of the more competent ones. I mean, you know, the fact that they included series like Monster, Fully Cooley, and, you know, Shinichiro Watanabe series, and even like One Piece, for example, right? It's like, it goes to show, and Togashi, for example, it goes to show, like, yes, they do actually, these anime experts might actually be anime experts. Who would have fucking thought? But yeah, that was just my 2 cents on that. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. Yeah, IGN, B+ for effort. But hey, why don't you smack my face right here to subscribe to the channel? Let's keep making big channel number go bigger. Over here next to my head is a couple more videos you can check out if you enjoyed this one, and links to all my social media, Twitter, Instagram, Patreon, my YouTube shorts, and TikTok are all down in the description below, and I will see you all in the next one. Peace.